Good evening, I'm James Ezimoha and you're watching A News. Here are top stories for tonight. Ukrainian capital Kyiv suffers from a major attack, leaving 12 dead and dozens injured. Trump calls Putin to stop. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the era of America as the sole guarantor of European security has ended. Cardinals gather ahead of conclave in Vatican as thousands mourn Pope Francis. Ukraine reports that a devastating wave of Russian missile and drone strikes has slammed into the capital Kyiv, killing at least 12 people and injuring 90, many of them children. A night of strikes across multiple cities has left destruction, panic and heartbreak in its wake. Moscow has yet to issue an official response.
Ukrainian officials say the overnight attack on Kyiv left widespread destruction in its wake. The most severe damage was reported in the Swatoshinsky district, where a residential building was reduced to rubble. Local officials confirmed that at least 12 people are dead and more than dozens are injured, many of them children. 6 children and a pregnant woman were among the injured.
There was the air raid siren. We did not even have time to dress to go out of the apartment. One blast came after the other. All windows were blown out, doors, walls. My husband and son were thrown to the other side. That's it. I cannot remember anything else. This is what the situation is like. The main thing is that we are alive. Everything will be okay.
There was a quick, sudden explosion and the ceiling started to come down. A wardrobe in the corridor and one of the walls from the next door apartment fell down on me. In the room, one of the neighbours' walls fell down too. Everything kept falling down, crumbling.
Fires broke out at more than a dozen sites across the capital. Garages, administrative buildings and private homes all took hits. Rescue teams are ongoing. Authorities say phone calls are still being heard from beneath the wreckage. As missiles rained down, more than 16,000 people sought refuge in the Kyiv metro system, including around 2,000 children. All 46 underground stations remained open throughout the night, operating around the clock as shelters. The capital's metro press service confirmed that the Lukyanivska station, which has now been damaged for the 5th time, was among those affected in the latest barrage. The Russian attack affected not only Kyiv, but also hit Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Zhytomyr, Zaporizhia, Khmelnytsky regions. In Kharkiv, 2 people were injured and several private homes were damaged. An air raid alert lasted over 6 hours, with Ukrainian Air Force officials warning that nearly all regions were under threat. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who was in South Africa on a diplomatic mission, announced he would cut the trip short and return to Kyiv. He said Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga would remain to brief leaders on the unfolding crisis. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry claimed that 87 Ukrainian drones were intercepted or destroyed over Russian territory overnight.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, during his visit to South Africa for peace talks, criticized the lack of strong U.S. pressure on Russia and called for more international action to stop the aggression. He announced plans to return to Kyiv early after Russia's deadly missile and drone strikes on the city. Meanwhile, the Kremlin reaffirmed its commitment to continuing military operations in Ukraine and ensuring Moscow's interests are considered in any peace settlement, according to spokesperson Dmitry Peskov. U.S. President Donald Trump is urging Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop strikes on Kyiv after a night of heavy Russian attacks. Trump issued a rebuke of Putin on Thursday after Russia launched overnight missile and drone attacks on the Ukrainian capital. In a post on his Truth Social account, Trump wrote, quote, "Vladimir, stop. and, quote, calling the strikes unnecessary and poorly timed. So far, the Kremlin is yet to respond. Tensions are flaring between Washington and Kyiv over the future of Crimea and stalled peace efforts. President Trump's remarks have reignited debate on how far Ukraine should go to end the war.
US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy clashed once again on Wednesday over efforts to end the ongoing war in Ukraine. The latest dispute centered around Crimea, with Trump sharply criticizing Zelenskyy for refusing to acknowledge Russia's occupation of the peninsula.
Ukraine does not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about. This is beyond our constitution. It's our territory, the territory of the people of Ukraine.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump condemned Zelenskyy's stance, calling it very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia. He added, it's inflammatory statements like Zelenskyy's that make it so difficult to settle this war. He has nothing to boast about. The situation for Ukraine is dire. He can choose peace, or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. Trump's remarks followed a high-level meeting in London aimed at finding a resolution to the war. However, the talks were overshadowed by the absence of US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who declined to attend, effectively downgrading the event. Emotions have run high today, Zelenskyy said on X Wednesday after the talks. Seemingly responding to Trump's criticism, Zelenskyy reaffirmed Ukraine's position, stating, Ukraine will always act in accordance with its constitution, and we are absolutely confident that our partners, especially the United States, will continue to stand by their firm commitments. In Kyiv, residents voiced strong support for Zelenskyy's position, insisting that Crimea is an inseparable part of Ukraine and must not be used as a bargaining chip in negotiations with Russia.
I think it is a right thing that Ukraine defended its borders and said that Crimea is part of Ukraine and did not recognize it as part of Russia. The way Rubio and United States reacted to it is their own fault. Whether we will bring Crimea back or not, and when it will happen, is a whole different question.
Peace is not worth any bargaining. Bargaining is simply not possible. We do not need peace at this price. Boys have been dying for more than 10 years, and we cannot betray them.
While Kyiv acknowledges that reclaiming Crimea by force is currently unrealistic, it remains committed to its eventual return. Most countries around the world continue to recognise Crimea as part of Ukraine under international law.
The US may no longer serve as Europe's main security shield. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says it's time for NATO allies to boost their own defense efforts. Speaking in Pennsylvania, Hegseth said the era of America as the sole guarantor of European security has ended. He called on NATO countries to raise military spending to 5% of GDP, up from the current 2% threshold set back in 2014. Reports also suggest that Pentagon is weighing a troop reduction in Eastern Congo, Eastern Europe, while US officials signal no clear path for Ukraine joining NATO.
Services will have an opportunity to.
We go to Vatican City, where the cardinals are meeting ahead of the conclave to choose a new pope, as tens of thousands gather to bid farewell to Pope Francis, who died earlier this week.
Nearly 50,000 people have visited St. Peter's Basilica to pay respects to Pope Francis, who died Monday at age 88 after a stroke and cardiac arrest. His body lies in an open coffin since Wednesday. Residents and visitors come together to honor the Pope as a remarkable father whose legacy will endure forever.
He was a wonderful Pope, a good, human, intelligent Pope, and I'm going to miss him so much. He's just a piece of me. I'm going to miss him so much because it's like I've lost a piece of me.
I'm here today to see Pope because I'm so sad that she got died, and I know Pope is very kind, selfless, and I want to see him for the last time. Yes. And even if I'm pregnant, I want to go here to see him for goodbye and pray for him.
Cardinals gathered at the Vatican on Thursday for the Third General Congregation, one of a series of preparatory meetings ahead of the conclave to elect a new pope. These sessions help define the qualities needed in the next leader of the Roman Catholic Church. On Saturday, over 170 delegations, including heads of state and government, are expected in St. Peter's Square for the funeral ceremony, with millions more watching on television across the globe.
So Pope Francis's funeral will be the standard funeral for a pope. The last time that there was a funeral for a reigning pope who died while reigning in office was that of John Paul II in 2005. It's a special liturgy specifically for the death of a pope. And towards the end, there is known what is known as the commendation and the final farewell, where there'll be a series of prayers over the coffin.
At the end of the funeral mass, Pope Francis's body, according to his testament, will be taken to Santa Maria Maggiore's Basilica for burial. Pope Francis asked to be buried in the earth, simple, without particular decoration, and with the inscription only of his papal name in Latin, Franciscus. The last pope to be buried outside the Vatican was Leo XIII, who died in 1903.
A 15-year-old student attacked classmates with a knife at a high school in Nantes, killing one and injuring 3 others. The attacker was arrested at the scene after being restrained by a teacher. Authorities say there is no indication of a terrorist move. The victim's identity have not been released, and investigations is underway. France's Education Minister and Interior Minister have announced they will visit the school. At the former Nazi concentration camp Auschwitz, the presidents of Poland and Israel delivered strong statements on the current global conflict. The remarks came during the March of the Living ceremony, calling for peace in Ukraine and the Middle East.
During a joint appearance at Auschwitz, Polish President Andrzej Duda said he hopes the war in Ukraine could soon end through diplomatic efforts led by the United States.
The war in Ukraine will end with peace, a lasting peace, that Russia will simply not attack anyone else, that Russian imperialism will be stopped.
He also called for a resolution to the Gaza conflict, supporting the return of hostages and a long-term political solution.
We both expressed hope that the war in the Gaza Strip will be ended, that the hostages will be able to return home based on the solution. We consider rational and a source of hope for a lasting and permanent peace.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog emphasized the importance of remembering the Holocaust and urged the international community to support the release of hostages.
The return of the hostages is a universal human imperative, and I call for the entire international community to join in and put an end to this humanitarian crime.
He also called for international cooperation to counter rising anti-Semitism and support global stability.
We must stand firm and breathe content into the promise of never again in legislation, enforcement, education, and culture.
The leaders spoke during the March of the Living, held annually at Auschwitz to honor Holocaust victims and reflect on lessons from history.
Now, more on the situation involving the ongoing and no doubt protracted Israel-Hamas conflict. Joining us is Maurice Hirs from the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Sir, public criticisms of Hamas in Gaza is rare, but we have seen some powerful signs of growing discontent within Hamas-controlled Gaza. What is your reading of this situation?
I think it's very encouraging to see that there are finally some of the Gazans that are objecting to the Hamas rule. What we saw already, as just linking it to your previous item, what we saw during the Holocaust was dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands, of people standing up against the Nazis and saving Jews from the gas chambers. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that yet in Gaza. We haven't seen any of the Gazans standing up and bringing the hostages and freeing them, even though they've been offered a $5 million prize and free passage anywhere in the world. And so at least they are now starting to rise up against Hamas and recognizing that Hamas has brought this disaster upon them.
Mahmoud Abbas, president of the Palestinian Authority, has subjected Hamas to heavy criticisms. Is there any chance for the government of Israel to cooperate with the Palestinian Authority regarding Gaza?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that whilst there are definitely positive signs that Mahmoud Abbas, after 18 months, has decided that he can condemn Hamas for bringing about a disaster on the Palestinian people, he has yet to condemn the October 7 massacre. He does not substantially differ from Hamas in his goals. His goal too is to destroy Israel. And so I feel that whilst he's trying to play the right music for the international community, there isn't much substance behind that, and he still remains a rejectionist of peace and not a partner for peace.
Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much indeed.
Tensions remain high in the global trade arena as US President Donald Trump signals that any easing of steep tariffs on China will be conditional and entirely dependent on Beijing's efforts. These comments come amid ongoing negotiations which have rattled markets and raised global economic concerns.
US President Donald Trump signaled a potential shift in his trade war with China, stating that tariffs on Chinese goods will come down substantially, but not to zero. He emphasized that any reduction depends on China's response.
Well, that depends on them. We have a situation where we have a very, very great place. It's called the United States of America, and it's been ripped off for years and years. These people know it. We talked about it before you came in. We've been ripped off by every country in the world, practically, and friend and foe. And we're not doing that anymore.
In response to President Trump's tariff announcement,
this follows comments from U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who said that the ongoing tariff standoff with China is unsustainable and that a de-escalation is likely between the world's two largest economies. Trump also confirmed that the current 145% tariff on Chinese imports remains unchanged for now, although he suggested that a substantial cut might be on the table.
No, I haven't brought it down. I haven't brought it still 145. I haven't brought it down. I said it's a high tariff. It is a high tariff, but I haven't brought it down. It basically means China's not doing any business with us, essentially, because it's a very high number. But we get along. I get along very well with President Xi, and I hope we can make a deal. Otherwise, we'll set a price, and hopefully they'll come here and they'll contribute. And if they don't, that's okay.
Beijing has strongly criticized the U.S. and responded by imposing retaliatory tariffs of 125% on American goods. Chinese officials argue that U.S. levies defy basic economic logic and international trade principles. Trump has also imposed a blanket 10% tariff on all other U.S. imports and introduced higher duties on steel, aluminum, and autos. Tax hikes targeting dozens of other countries have been suspended until July, and new levies are being considered for specific industries such as pharmaceuticals and semiconductors. Meanwhile, the wide-ranging measures have shaken financial markets and raised fears of a looming recession. Experts warn that prolonged tariffs and retaliatory measures could destabilize international supply chains, drive up consumer prices, and weigh heavily on global growth.
China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Yao Jiekun, rejected U.S. claims saying no tariff talks have occurred, contradicting President Trump's statement about ongoing contact with China. He criticized the U.S. for abusing tariffs, calling it a violation of WTO rules that harms global interest. Yuo emphasized that China remains open to dialogue, but is ready to fight if necessary, adding that talks must be fair and respectful. South Korea's acting president, Han Duck-soo, says the government will seek a win-win outcome as trade talks with the United States begin today. Cooperation in shipbuilding and energy is expected to be high on the agenda, along with shared defense costs. South Korea is currently facing 25% U.S. tariffs and is looking for relief. Meanwhile, at the National Assembly, acting president Han Duck-soo has called for the swift approval of an $8.6 billion supplementary budget aimed at boosting economic recovery amid global uncertainty. The South Sudanese army says it has now taken full control of Nasir town in the north of the country. They were pushed out of the town last month by armed militia affiliated with South Sudan's opposition leader and Vice President Riek Machar. The fighting last month led to the arrest of Machar in Juba. Patrick Oyet reports from South Sudan's capital.
South Sudan's government says clashes in Nasir have now ended. However, opposition leader and Vice President Riek Machar remains under house arrest. President Kiir's party says it plans to take Mr. Machar to court for mobilizing armed militia to attack and overrun a government military garrison in Nasir. The armed civilians known as the White Army fought for Mr. Machar in a civil war in the country between 2013 and 2018, but Mr. Machar's group says it now has no link with that militia. Riek Machar does head the largest opposition group in South Sudan, which has an armed wing. Mr. Machar only returned to the country in 2018 as a result of a peace arrangement. The arrest of Mr. Machar is creating concern among many South Sudanese people, as well as section of the international community. Germany has temporarily closed its embassy in South Sudan. U.S. has removed all its non-essential staff, but South Sudan's government insists that the country will not go back to war. Patrick Oyet for Air News in Juba, South Sudan.
President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev met in Beijing with Song He-ling, chairman of the board of China Energy Engineering Corporation Limited, also known as Energy China. Song He-ling proposed new cooperation ideas, including energy corridors, while President Aliyev stressed the strategic importance of the partnership. They also discussed creating an energy research center and collaborating on water management. Energy China operates globally in renewable energy, hydrogen and power grids, with 256 branches in 147 countries and controlling half of China's renewable energy market. The company is also overseeing major projects in Azerbaijan, including a 1 gigawatt offshore wind farm in Caspian Sea and solar energy investments in Fuzuli. Baku is at the center of global space conversation as it hosts the Space Technology Conference 2025. Experts from around the world gathered in the capital city of Azerbaijan to explore the future of space innovation and sustainability. Our Anastasia Lavrini has more.
Today, April 24, marked the powerful start of the Space Technology Conference 2025 here in Baku, organized by the Space Agency of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Throughout the day, almost 400 delegates from 35 countries explored some of the most urgent and exciting topics in the global space sector.
I already consider these numbers a success for this event. It is not the first successful event for Baku, for Azerbaijan and for Azercosmos. Previously, in 2021, we have hosted the first meeting of the space agencies of the Organization of Turkic States, and yesterday we hosted the fourth meeting for the same purpose.
The event began with a strong focus on Central Eurasia participation in the global space economy. Speakers emphasized the region's growing importance as a hub for connectivity, innovation, and strategic infrastructure.
So a lot of countries like Azerbaijan are planning on building their own satellites, and that's Earth observation satellites as well as data satellites. So ultimately, yeah, we need to see more of the countries in the regions basically helping and building their own satellites, but also looking into areas where the space technology can advance and there's new designs and things.
What's particularly interesting is the diversity of the participants. Delegates have traveled from every corner of the globe, each with a shared goal to discover new opportunities. We had the chance to speak with several of them, and they emphasized how important this event for their organizations, not just for showcasing capabilities, but for exploring partnerships, investments, and future collaborations here in Azerbaijan.
This conference, we are looking for an opportunity or potential in this market so that we can find a partner or we can expand our market into Eurasia through Azerbaijan. So we learned that there are so many companies and partners from all over the world.
And today we witnessed a historic moment, the signing of a memorandum of understanding between Hungary's 4IG Space and Defense Technologies and Azerbaijan's Azercosmos. This agreement opens a new chapter of strategic cooperation between the two countries and signals a major step forward in a collaboration in satellite technology, space innovation and defense applications.
We think that Azerbaijan and Azercosmos has huge heritage regarding space technology, huge potential. It is also developing an emerging space nation as Hungary. So as a Hungarian company, for us, it was obvious that we would like to see what type of partnership we can have with Azercosmos.
As part of the Space Technology Conference 2025 in Baku, Azercosmos also hosted a leadership of Star Vision, a prominent Chinese space intelligence firm known for its AI-driven satellite technologies. The visit highlights a significant step forward in the strengthening partnership between the two sides.
Last year with Azercosmos, which is a space agency of Azerbaijan, and last year in the COP29, which is the National Climate Change Conference, we published the coastline change of the Caspian Sea near Baku, and we collect the data or the satellite imagery in past decades, and we use AI technology to monitoring and to detect the change of the coastline.
Finally, the day closed with inspiring conversations on sustainable development. We heard how space technologies are not just about exploring the stars. They are about solving problems here on Earth, from agriculture and water management to clean energy and environmental protection.
ID Space and Azercosmos is working together with the Space Academy of Azerbaijan in order to make the school children of Azerbaijan to build a satellite with us. And then the expectation is like how growing has been the ecosystem of Azerbaijan and also attract the mind of the students.
Day one has shown us that space is no longer the domain of a few. It's a shared frontier, a place where collaboration across border sectors and disciplines is not just beneficial, it's essential. Stay with us tomorrow as A News will continue to explore the cutting edge of space technology and international cooperation here in Baku.
At the initiative of the Nomad Mania Club, travelers from 30 different countries have visited Karabakh and eastern Zangezur regions of Azerbaijan. During the trip, they observed reconstruction and restoration efforts underway in Shusha, Kankendi, and Agdam. The main objective is to present these territories to the global community as symbols of revival.
This latest international expedition, which embodies the spirit of discovery and reconstruction, has brought together influential travelers from different parts of the world, explorers from countries including the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, France, China, Australia, and New Zealand, gathered in Karabakh to witness the transformation of the region.
I'm happy to be here. This is something unique as a traveler to come here. I couldn't really imagine these piece of action, of government actions that are far away from Baku are here.
During the 3-day visit, the delegation toured Shusha, Kankendi, and Agdam. Led by Harry Mitsidis, founder of Nomad Mania and a globally renowned traveler, the group observed the large-scale restoration works being carried out across the liberated territories.
We stopped at a few places and saw the mosque and other places, and it's just amazing to see how well it's taken care of, how proud you are of the heritage and of this region.
This marks the 13th such expedition since the Azerbaijani government began granting access to international travelers.
This initiative is not only about crossing geographical border, but also marks a turning point on a deeper emotional level, once known as a regional geopolitical conflict. But these lands are now opening up to the world, not with soldiers, but with storytellers, journalists, and travelers.
The aim is to shift the narrative from destruction to renewal, presenting these lands as a testament to resilience and recovery.
We are impressed about the progressions which have been made since the last 3 years and all the buildings that have been rebuilt in the liberated territories. So we are really very proud and thrilled and honored to be here.
We entered the mountainous area here in Karabakh, and then things changed dramatically because it was very beautiful, very nice landscape, and we enjoyed it actually very well.
Promoting the region through the concept of dark tourism plays a key role in this effort. This form of educational travel to post-conflict zones helps illustrate the historical, social and political transformation taking place in the region.
European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, will be in Baku tomorrow. The EU High Representative is planning to meet with the President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, and Foreign Minister Jeroen Bayramov. Kaja Kallas will also meet with young European ambassadors in Azerbaijan. This initiative brings together socially engaged youth from the 6 Eastern partner countries, the European Union, and the United Kingdom to foster dialogue and raise awareness about the EU and its cooperation with its Eastern partner countries. As diplomatic efforts intensify across the South Caucasus, Georgia steps into the spotlight once again. In Tbilisi, high-level talks unfold between the country's leadership and the OSCE, with regional security and international partnership taking center stage. Meanwhile, OSCE Secretary General Feridun Sinirlioglu is set to visit Baku tomorrow. Our Nini Nikolashvili has more.
In Tbilisi, Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze met with OSCE Secretary General Feridun Sinirlioglu to strengthen regional stability and international cooperation. The talks focused on enhancing Georgia-OSCE ties, regional security and challenges facing Georgia, including ongoing occupation of its territories. Georgian Prime Minister Kobakhidze thanked to OSCE for its ongoing support and reaffirmed country's commitment to democratic values and European integration path. The discussions included the Geneva International Discussions and incident prevention and response mechanisms, vital platforms for addressing tensions. The talks also touched on broader geopolitical dynamics in the South Caucasus, where peace and stability remains fragile amid shifting global power balances. The Georgian officials reiterated their government's peace-first approach, positioning the country as a constructive player in the South Caucasus diplomacy. Later, Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze described the OSCE partnership as an essential for Georgia's stability and economic resilience, underlining its role in supporting regional cooperation and confronting shared global challenges. With fragile peace in the South Caucasus, Georgia's engagement with the OSCE remains vital. This meeting highlighted the shared commitment to sustaining dialogue and enhancing regional security mechanisms. Notably, the OSCE Secretary General is also to visit Azerbaijan tomorrow and hold official meetings with Azerbaijani officials in Baku. It's Nina Nikolashvili reporting from Tbilisi, News.
Following a 6.2 magnitude earthquake that struck Istanbul on Wednesday, the city has continued to experience aftershocks, one of which, measuring 4.1 in magnitude, was recorded at 7:21 a.m. That's according to Turkey's Disaster and Emergency Management Authority. Authorities have confirmed that no fatalities or significant damage were caused by the main tremor or the subsequent aftershocks. Many opted to spend the night outdoors out of caution. Parks in Faith District became makeshift shelters where citizens set up tents or laid down mattresses to sleep under the open sky. Others chose to sleep in their cars. Several mosques were kept open throughout the night by order of Istanbul Governor's Office, offering warmth and shelter. Moscow has voiced concern over the European Union's efforts to expand its influence in Central Asia. During his visit to Samarkand, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held talks with Uzbek Foreign Minister Bakhtir Saidov and President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, making a number of key statements. Fariza Kilmoziner has more.
At a press conference in Samarkand, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused the European Union of advancing an anti-Russian agenda in Central Asia. Lavrov said that while Moscow respects its partners' multi-vector foreign policies, some Western nations are exploiting this approach to push their own interests. He claimed European Union-funded programs are interfering in state institutions, including customs, border control and statistical services, calling such actions unacceptable. According to Lavrov, Central Asian nations clearly understand the goals the West is advancing. He emphasized that Russia supports regional cooperation with outside partners, but only when it respects national sovereignty. We never allow ourselves to interfere in anyone's internal affairs, he said. One notable moment of Lavrov's visit was his stop at the Grieving Mother Monument in Samarkand, where he remarked on the absence of a Russian language inscription. Only Uzbek and English were displayed. The comment sparked debate, with some Uzbek activists criticizing the remark. The visit came shortly after the first European Union Central Asia Summit, also held in Samarkand on the 1st of April, where Brussels pledged 12 billion euros for regional development. In response, the Russian Foreign Minister confirmed plans to host the Russia Central Asia Summit in Dushanbe this October, a platform aimed at discussing key issues of regional cooperation. Fariza Kalimurzina in Almaty, Kazakhstan, News.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to News.